to another edition of Pit Lane Parlay. With us today, we have IndyCar President of Competition, Jay Frye, with us. Jay, how you doing?
Good. How about you? Thanks for having me.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy day to join us. I'll jump right into it. I know you only have 15 minutes or so here. So I guess I'll start with an easy one. With all the positive momentum in IndyCar, the TV deal, the new aero kit on the cars, seems like an uptick in sponsorship. The Indy 500 ticket sales are expected to pass last year. What is kind of the next thing to continue to grow IndyCar even further?
The next thing, well, I think we certainly appreciate all you're doing. It's things like what you guys do that help catapult this in the direction that we're all, that it's going right now, which is great. So thank you. We got a lot of things going on the competition side. We're still working on the windscreen piece to see where that takes us. We're working on some engine upgrades and the next spec and future of the engine program. So that's something that's ongoing. Working on some new OEM prospects for the future, which is really good. We got this 5-year plan we put together that really started last year with the freezing of the aero kits. The centerpiece of this 5-year plan is the current car this year, which will be run in 18, 19, and 20. So there's a lot of really good things we think in the future. The paddock has been outstanding. Everybody's lined up and going the same direction and was part of this 5-year plan. So we're quite excited.
Yeah, I think everything you mentioned there is fantastic, and the buzz in the paddock in St. Pete was great to see. With that, I'll turn it over to Jess, and we'll switch gears slightly here in our Get to Know You segment. Jess, I'll let you turn it away and ask whatever you'd like to start with.
All right, Jay. So I don't know if you've had a chance to give us a listen yet or not, but
I have.
I'm the fun one, so I'm sure
Okay.
If you have listened, you know what my first question is going to be. But if I gave you a 400-pound block of cheddar jack cheese, this time we'll go with cheddar jack, what would you do with it?
A 400-pound block. Well, I'm a huge cheese. I like cheese, so that's good. I think what I would do with the 400-pound block of cheese is I would cut it up and enjoy it over obviously a period of probably years, but wouldn't want it to go to waste.
All right, I like it.
That's a
so
pretty
you're
boring
gonna keep
answer, right?
it all
That's
for
pretty
yourself.
boring.
No, that's
share. I'm a good sharer. I like to share. I definitely would share it with many people, but it would probably take us a while to eat it all.
For sure.
I have been known to eat an entire pizza in one sitting, so I'm sure I could find some
absolutely.
room for
Yeah.
extra cheese.
Yeah.
All right, we'll switch gears. I'm going to go a non-racing question here. I know you're a big sports fan. How is your March Madness bracket doing? Is it as bad as mine?
I think it's just like everybody else's. It was imploded a long time ago, right? So, yeah, which it's been really fun to watch. A lot of teams, underdog, mid-major type teams, knock a lot of the big five guys off, and it's been an exciting tournament.
Yeah, I am not super knowledgeable about basketball, but I've enjoyed it, and especially with the hometown Villanova doing well again.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. Jess?
Okay, so my next, we'll call it normal, abnormal question. What is your spirit animal and why?
What's my spirit animal? I know we have a German Shepherd. Yeah, I'll just go with him. Yeah, he's a great dog. He's like 5. Pays attention to what he's doing, and he's like my buddy. So I'll just go with my German Shepherd, Rebel.
All right, I like it.
It's like Rebel's his name. So we got him as a puppy, and he came, with a name, and then the breeder was like, well, you can certainly rename him. At that time, I think our daughters were like 9 and 7, and they both thought Rebel was a really cool name, so we just stuck with Rebel.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did when we got.
And he's anything but a rebel, but it's a cool name.
Yeah, as many listeners know, my dog sits next to me while we record every week, and when we rescued him, his rescue name was Jerry, and I thought, how funny would it be to have a dog with a human name like Jerry?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we stuck with it. Back to racing questions. As director of competition for the last 2 going on 3 years now. What does it mean to have the Indy 500 car count back up to where bump day is not necessarily guaranteed right now, but looking very likely? Does that how great is that?
Oh, that's awesome. And I think getting back to the original questions, if you look at really the indicators, right? So this year we have 4 new teams. We have prospect. They have other new teams coming in 2019, 2020, which is a great indicator. The sponsorship announcements over the last couple of weeks on the team side, there was 8 to 10 of them, which is a great indicator. The 500 entry list, like usually in November, December time, we'll be at 20 to 22 cars or 24, 25 cars that we feel good about or that are verbally confirmed. This past December, we were already at 31, 32, that type thing. So the indicator was way ahead of schedule. So that's a really good thing. So Dallara is an example. New cars being built. They have, I think, 9 to 12 of them right now in the queue, which is something that hasn't happened for some time. So these are not a PR spin in any way. These are real indicators of really what's going on. So it's a really good thing. And the 500 is a big indicator of that. So I think it's going to continue to grow and to build car count wise, because as we gain other new teams coming in and then hopefully another manufacturer coming in, that'll just expand it even more rapidly.
Yeah, I think that's all good signs. In years past we've had plenty of talk about it, but no real action. This year it just feels, even in the off season, every week there was just more action, and obviously gave us plenty to talk about as we started the show. Now, even though you're director of competition or president of competition, will you still be involved in the search for the new IndyCar title sponsor?
Yeah, well, remember before I took this position, I was on the revenue side of Holman and Company, so I was part of bringing Verizon or getting Verizon in. So absolutely, I mean, we're a small group. We're all involved in some way, shape, or form in everything we do. So absolutely, we all have different contacts. We all have different friends in the industry that can help with things like that. So we're all involved, yes.
Great. Jess?
So if you were going to host a dinner party and you could pick 3 people, living or dead, whomever you want from whatever walk of life, who would you pick?
3 people for dinner. Wow. That's I don't remember these questions.
I change it up kind of
often.
You do
change it up, yeah. 3 people. Mickey Mantle.
Oh, I love it.
How about it? Yeah, he'd be one. Let's see. How about my dad, who passed away many years ago? Would be good. And let's see, someone else. How about Eddie Van Halen?
Ooh, man,
nice.
All around
Van Halen fan. Yeah, it's got to be a unique group, right? So we got kind of diverse, kind of different things going on there. So that'd be dinner.
It'd be a good conversation.
Yeah.
I think that might be the most diverse answer we've gotten on that one so far, Jess.
I think so.
Switching gears back to racing, in your tenure at IndyCar, as you mentioned, starting out on the revenue side back in 2014, I believe. Is there one thing that stands out to you as kind of a I don't want to say trophy, but one achievement that stands out that so far you go, I'm really proud of this. I'm super happy, and I'm using this to propel my self forward and propel IndyCar forward.
I think the whole the paddock. I'm very proud of how this group has worked very hard together, and again, we've come up with this 5-year plan. Everybody's had a part of it. The new car, everybody had a part of it, including the fans. I mean, it was something that we all worked on it together. We would do different things. We would put out drawings or renderings or whatever. We got the fans' opinion. Again, all the competitors have had, or all the paddock has had an input in everything we've done and everywhere we're going. So very proud of that, because it's very much a team effort. I think, if you look at on the revenue piece we talked about, if coming from where I actually come from, the NASCAR team side, right, where I owned a team and managed teams, and I was always on the team side. Think of it this way: if you don't generate revenue, you don't race, right? So you have to perform on and off the track. The better you perform on the track, hopefully, the more money you can generate or raise, but you obviously have to have money to get started too. So that was something we always did. I was never technically in sales, but as the team principal or team owner or president of a team, we were always trying to raise money and to go race. So that was something when I got here. That was the first time I'd ever actually been on the sales side. So we learned a lot, had some good things happen over the couple of years. And then now in this role I've been in now for the last couple of years is more my background, on the competition side. So, but at the end of the day, racing takes money, so we're all involved in that.
Yeah, very, very well said. I will turn it back over to Jess.
Okay, I'm going to switch this up, and I'm going to ask a sort of racing question, not IndyCar in specifically, but if you had a bucket list, what race would be at the top to go and experience?
What race? Well, that would have to be the Indianapolis 500, right?
I mean,
or this would be one that I don't go to.
But...
Yeah. Or or is it one that I don't currently go to?
How about one you don't currently go to?
Currently go to. Well, think if I've been to, obviously all the NASCAR ones over 20-some years. I've been to all the IndyCar ones over the last few years, so I would have to say it would be a Formula One race then, right? Maybe. Monaco. Monaco would be cool, but obviously I can't do that. But we actually were in Monaco a few years ago, and we were there a couple weeks before the actual Grand Prix, and they had a historic race going on. And it was very cool. I mean, it was old F1 cars and other kinds of cars, so it was pretty neat to watch. So you got to see how it operated, even though it wasn't the Grand Prix. It was amazing how they shut down the streets, and in between, races, they would open them back up for 10 or 15 minutes. The traffic would continue like nothing had even happened. They'd close the street again, and there they would go. So it was just it was cool to watch procedurally how it's a routine that they've been doing for so many years.
Huh.
Yeah, I think I would have to go with Monaco or the 24 hours of Le Mans. I think if I were to travel for a race to see that it isn't easily accessible, that would be one of my two. What about you, Jess?
I would say Monaco and Chili Bowl.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. How could I forget that?
Well, I've been to Chili Bowl, so I just went with somewhere I had never been before. How's that?
Yep.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah.
So, kind of in the same line as Jess's question, is there one track you would love to get IndyCar either to that they haven't been or back to, such as, Watkins Glen or Cleveland or whatever track people are clamoring for? Is there one that you would love to see IndyCar back at?
There's probably a handful. Again, we've been fortunate the last couple of years to bring back some of the more historic venues, being Road America, Phoenix, Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen being a good example. I don't think that it was more of a date issue, and Michael Printup and his staff did a phenomenal job for us. They, when we had the situation, they certainly stepped in and helped us fix it quickly. But now going forward, it's more about how do we get them a proper date at some point.
Sure.
And there's others like that too. You talk. Homestead is, that we went. There's places we went in the past that I think the areas have changed a lot in the last 10 years that might be viable venues to go again. There's again going back to Portland. That's another example of that. So there's probably venues we've been to in the past that probably deserve another opportunity, or we could, it might benefit us to go there. But yeah, so there's probably a handful of them, and the ones I mentioned, I didn't mean to just mention any particular ones, but there's a list, yes.
Great, yeah, definitely. Watkins Glen was a good one to see, and hopefully you guys can all come to some sort of agreement on a date in the future. Would love to get up there for a race at some point. Jess, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll squeeze in one or two more questions and before Jay has to go.
Okay. So let's see. Trying to think of another one that's just going to kind of throw you for a loop. I'll go with one that I asked Stephen Wilson last week. What is the worst movie you've ever seen?
The worst movie I've ever seen. Wow. I've ever seen. Huh. That's a good one. I don't remember ever really seeing a bad one. Or I can't, none stick out. How's that? That it being bad ones. I mean, I got some of my favorites, like Smokey and the Bandit's one of my all-time favorites.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah, so you've got, I'm just trying to think of what's, Any Given Sunday is one of my favorites. I don't really know of a bad one. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm gonna find one. So next time I'm on the show, I can say I've watched something that's horrible and I turned it off.
All right, I will.
Here's one for you. I do have one, and it wasn't a bad movie, but it was so long. I remember seeing the Titanic at the theater, and I remember at some point, maybe more than once, dozing off a little bit. So I mean, obviously that wasn't a bad movie. It was a great movie. But
it was just too long.
It was just a little long for my attention span.
Got it. So don't give you anything more than what, like 2.5 hours long?
Yeah. Not in the movie theater. Yeah. 1.5 to maybe 2 hours. I'm good. Yes.
Yeah. Hour and a half, 2 hours is about my max too before I start dozing off, especially with those new comfy movie theater chairs that they have everywhere.
Dark. Yeah.
Although they do have this great thing called a movie tavern. I don't know if they have them in Indianapolis, but here in Philly, where you can have dinner and drinks while you have your movie, and that definitely puts me to sleep.
There you go. Get full. Yep.
Yeah, you get full, have a few drinks, and then next thing you know, you wake up and the movie's 15 minutes in. But Jay, I'm going to respect your time here and just close it out with one question. By first saying, thank you very much for some time today. It's been a real honor to have you on the show. We appreciate everything that you've done to lead IndyCar back in a great direction here. I know you mentioned a potential third OEM for an engine manufacturer. What is a time frame needed to get them into the series? I've seen the year 2020 thrown around there. How soon does somebody need to sign on the dotted line to get going?
Yeah, well, it's an 18 to 24 month process, so the window's closing pretty rapidly for 2020. So really, at this point, it's probably a 2021 endeavor. We would certainly love to announce something this year if we can. That's kind of a goal. What's really good is we're talking to numerous OEMs, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for what we're doing. And it also gets frustrating at times. You'd rather just have them tell you no, right? So no, we can't do it, and then we'll go do, so you just can go on and talk to somebody else or that type of thing. But it's really we're not getting no's. It's more about timing of things. So we feel good about it. When we talk to them, we have a very turnkey program that we show them how it would work if they want to build their own, if they want to do a badge type program. They can many different scenarios of how it would work. So. We're enthused about the prospects. That's another big indicator that we need to get taken care of. Would be the third OEM. Chevrolet and Honda have been great. They're very supportive of this. They're actively helping us. When we go through the process. So I think it's more of what the timing of it is as opposed to when it actually happens.
I love it. And with that, I know we're a few minutes over what I think you had time for. So, again, thank you very much for joining us. For those listening who don't follow Jay on social media, you can find him on Twitter at JRFrye. Definitely a good follow, very interactive on there. So, again, Jay, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you out at the track in May.
Yeah, well, you guys are the best. We certainly appreciate all you do.
Thank you
I
very much.
enjoy following along with you guys too. So please look me up, and if there's anything we can ever do, let us know.
Thanks a lot, Jay. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Thank you. See you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you again to Jay Frye for joining us on this episode, the last week of the off-season part 2 before we get going in Phoenix next weekend. Great interview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And we have another good one coming up next week with Bird CEO, Jonathan Bird Racing CEO, David Bird. That'll be for the first 20 minutes or so of the episode. But moving on, let's start with the news that came out probably right when we wrapped up recording last week's episode, that Adrian Renard and his company are working with IndyCar teams on the new 2018 Aero Kit. So first off, great to see that Renard's company is no longer bankrupt and they're getting back into the swing of things. I know they did some sports car stuff, I think, in the last few years. But now being involved in IndyCar again, definitely got everybody listening when this article came out. So Jess, I'll turn it over to you for your thoughts on this, and then we'll see where this goes.
So the article, I'm excited to see people coming back to the sport who used to be in the sport and used to be a big name. Because I think it is another way that shows that IndyCar is trending in the right direction. People are starting to see it turning around and it's looking better. I am so excited about that. The article, though, the way that the article reads, and you can, read into this as much as you want, but it was basically saying that there's a little bit of free rein on the cars, but not very much, but they're seeing what they can do to tweak it. So it almost reads like they're seeing what they can do to cheat.
That's a good way of putting it. I'm going to phrase it as in they are being as loose with the rule book as they possibly can without getting in trouble, using only approved parts, etc., etc. But I can't fault you for phrasing it that way, because it definitely feels like that. To follow up on my first point, since Renard came out of bankruptcy, they have been working with the Ginetta team on its LMP1 program in sports cars. So this is their first, foray back into IndyCar with the Auto Research Center wind tunnel that's right in Indianapolis. Working with a bunch of teams. I know even Toro Rosso worked there at some point, not with Renard, and I think Mercedes used it as well at some point. I found it interesting. I would like to know who is using this, because Schmidt-Peterson and only Schmidt-Peterson has said that they were not working with Renard, but Ganassi and Andretti did not respond, which probably leads me to believe that they're working with them, but maybe don't want to say it yet. And for those of you who enjoy, Chip Ganassi testing, there is that famous shutdown turnpike tunnel west of Pittsburgh that Ganassi has apparently rumored to be testing out there, all sorts of stuff. It's an interesting story if you have some time and you're interested in potentially what could be a conspiracy theory in racing. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it's true, because I don't drive out to Pittsburgh all that often. But excited to see him, back in the sport here. Especially, it could lead to some teams, improving their aero kit quicker than expected. But maybe down the line they'll be more involved somehow. Although I hope, they don't alter too much right now because of all the, positive momentum. But maybe a second chassis is better than a third engine. What do you think? I just came up with the idea off the top of my head, so don't get mad at me for putting us on the spot here.
I mean, if we're gonna go in a perfect world, why don't we have 2 chassis and 3 engines? Whoa, mind blown, right? I agree with you though. I think it's good. I think I think it's, again, putting light on the positive in IndyCar right now. And I say cheat with, kind of a little
Quotation
chuckle,
marks.
because um, I mean, I would hope that we don't see people going too far and getting, disqualified after the race or something silly. We had that previously, and it really sucked as a fan to see your driver win a race and then it all gets stripped away. So I would hope that they
Yep.
don't go that far. But we'll see. I can't wait to see if anything comes to light.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Hopefully, we get to hear some more about it in the coming weeks. Speaking of, testing and let's call it innovation, Marshall Pruitt wrote today that IndyCar is opening up suspension components to teams, to be a little bit less spec. I'm not going to go through all the tech of it because I am not probably the one to talk about that. But it's the front and rear anti-roll bars that will now be, more open. And from everything I've seen, they've already either been tested or they are scheduled to debut on both of Dale Coyne's cars in the near future. And then at a racetrack maybe at some point this year. So pretty cool. Definitely, came out of nowhere. I haven't seen anything about this until you sent me the article just about 45 minutes ago. So should be interesting. I guess it'll, separate some teams. But I think even a team like Dale Coyne with all the, engineering resources they have, with Michael Cannon and co., I think we'll be fine. Even though he doesn't have a huge budget, I think a team like Coyne will do just fine with this opening up. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't see there being any issues budget-wise, really, because it's more than likely going to be a race to see who can engineer them the best, get the best setup on the cars. So it'll be interesting. I'm glad that they're opening some components up because it's going to be, a who's who of engineers now, which I think will play to a lot of teams' strengths, and it might show some teams' weaknesses. So it'll be interesting to see. It is kind of a shame, though. I really enjoyed watching the St. Pete race, and I thought the cars did fantastic there. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit longer in, a true spec kind of car. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Also, I think a team with Schmidt Peterson in their, revamped engineering department, led by Lena Gade and co., I think will do wonders if evidenced by how strong they were in the first race of the year. So we shall see. In disappointing news, there is no testing this week, as you probably have already seen at Indy due to the snow, and now what I hear is torrential downpours for days. So if you have a boat, maybe you could ride your boat around the track. And I'll leave that terrible joke right there. Jess, is there anything you want to cover next?
Yeah, so this one's I've said many a time on here how I really love dirt racing, and I cannot be more excited. Chris Wyndham has got a ride for the Freedom 100 in May, and I am so flipping excited to see what he can do. He's been racing with the likes of Kyle Larson for years now. I mean, I can't even remember the first time I saw him race, but he can wheel a car, and I'm really, really excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think it should be good. And I'm glad to see some of these dirt drivers getting a chance in open wheel racing. Even though it's just the Freedom 100, it's still generally a hell of a race every year. And if it leads to potential Indy 500 options down the line for him, similar to how Brian Clausen got involved a couple years ago, I guess it was, that would be even better. And following up on Jess's point is we have the return of Bird Racing to help out Chris Windham to go along with Bellardi Auto Racing for the Freedom 100. And so we'll definitely be asking David Bird about that next week, and the prospects of them getting back into the Indy 500, which I think we would all love to see at some point, right?
Heck yes, we would.
Yes, and just so everybody can follow him on social media, you can find Chris at Windom Chris, WINDOM Chris, and Bird Racing is at BYRD Racing. And also Baldwin Brothers Racing is a part of that team. Can't remember if I've ever heard of Baldwin Brothers Racing. We need Encyclopedia Matt to to help us out with that one. So Matt, if you're listening, tweet at us if you know who Baldwin Brothers Racing is. Jess, do you have any idea on that one?
It sounds really, really familiar, and I don't off the top of my head, to be honest, but it does sound really familiar, so.
All right. A bunch of good sponsors.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
Sorry,
I
just found it. Nope, you're fine. Baldwin Brothers team has been in sprint car racing and USAC racing, so they that's where they're coming from.
Okay, so they're probably Wyndham's USAC team there.
Yes.
And I believe I saw somewhere there is a chance that Chris could be racing about 5 times in 3 days that weekend. I'm trying to pull it up. There's the Little 500, which is I believe is the night of the Indy 500, correct?
No, it's the weekend before.
The practice weekend and qualifying weekend.
Right. I think it's qualifying weekend.
Yes. So IndyCar PR whiz Arnie Shribben wrote, Indy 500 race week could be busy for at Wyndham Chris if he runs sprint cars at Terre Haute on the 23rd, Silver Crown at the Fairgrounds, and IRP Raceway on the 24th and the 25th, in addition to the Freedom 100. I love a story like that. And I hope Chris does very well. Look forward to seeing him out at the track. Now, I'll touch on this briefly here, as we, I'm going to save it for the end of the episode too, but the F1 race. I'm going to save part of this for the end and part of it now. First off, the new F1 cars, this year's F1 car, looks like it's a tank on wheels with an open top. The amount of aero bits and pieces that they have probably trumps what IndyCar had for the last couple years, I don't know, tenfold, and offers the drivers very little chance for passing. No, I did not stay up and watch the race at 1 o'clock in the morning my time because I am not insane. But I did DVR it and watch it. There were 5 on-track passes the entire race, and 16 passes if you include, guys passing when other guys are in the pits, and I think that also includes, anybody who had to retire from the race and therefore lost positions. So your grand total is still only 16, which, I think we need that, mind-blown meme to show up again at this point in the episode, because you'd almost think just by pure luck you'd get more than 16 in a 2.5-hour race. Am I not wrong there?
Yeah. I mean, that's just absolutely, well, like you said, mind-blowing, but just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily agree with the whole tank on wheels thing, but I'll go with it. Not exactly the prettiest beasts this year, but I've seen worse.
That's fair.
So I think that, F1 has just kind of become such a circus the past couple of years that it's just all kind of catching up at the same time. I mean, 5 passes, I'm like, why even bother, I mean, really.
To me, F1 obviously has the, pomp and circumstance and whatnot, but if they're not going to review the overall aero package until 2021, they might be headed for a very, very quick ratings decline, quicker than anything quicker than NASCAR, that's for sure. I think it might drop below. It's definitely going to drop below IndyCar at this rate. And you have guys like Mario Andretti has spoken out about F1 this weekend. NHRA driver Ron Capps spoke out against F1 this weekend. A lot of guys, Graham Rahal spoke out against it, which you can find all online on their various Twitter accounts. But when you get Mario Andretti, who raced both IndyCar and F1, saying that Formula One has really missed out here, and making overtaking more difficult, I think that's definitely a sign you really messed up. Especially when you consider the fact that St. Petersburg had a record, IndyCar record, 366 on-track passes, which doesn't even include passes because of somebody getting knocked out of the race or somebody pitting and somebody else gaining position. Again, thank you to Arnie for making that clear the other day. Arnie, for everybody, is IndyCar's PR guy and very knowledgeable and helpful when I'm trying to figure out what exactly I'm talking about, which I guess maybe sometimes I'm not even sure of. But in this case, when you have Mario Andretti slamming F1, how bad is that?
I mean, you've pretty much reached the bottom. Like I said, I mean, I think it's just been a circus for the last few years, and I think they're, so in my opinion, and obviously take it with a grain of salt because I'm very opinionated, but in my opinion, when they got rid of Bernie, they tried to change everything at one time, and it was too much. They needed to kind of phase things through, like kind of like IndyCar did. I know it's not exactly the same, but when they merged IndyCar and CART back together, it wasn't an overnight, oh my god, and we have a new thing and it's this and this, and it's like they needed to kind of like do a little bit at a time, and I think they've done too much, and now I think they are hurting.
Yeah, what's sad is, and I don't agree with this, and I don't agree that it should be done at other F1 tracks. F1 decided, in the middle of the weekend, I don't remember if the first practice had started yet or not, but they would add a third DRS zone for passing. And for those who aren't as familiar with F1, DRS zone is when if a driver is within a second, I believe, of the car in front of him, he can hit the DRS button, which I believe reduces the downforce on their car by opening a rear wing flap. I'm not a big fan of DRS zones to begin with because it just seems kind of silly to promote passing at only certain points in the track when you should be trying to just have a better race overall. But as we can see, a third DRS zone means there was an average of 1.1 passes per DRS zone. I know I'm making up numbers here. And they said that they would look at doing similar things for other races. I think they're really kind of just missing the point here. Adding a DRS zone is not going to help much because I believe it was Max Verstappen who said you feel the dirty air from the car in front of you when you're 3 seconds away. So if you're 3 seconds away, how are you supposed to get close enough to use DRS? I'm not a mechanical engineer here, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to work then. So I think they're just they're trying to put a Band-Aid on a much more severe problem that's not going to help.
We like to call that grasping at straws.
Yes, thank you. I was actually looking for that, and I figured I would just keep talking until you said something that made sense.
I kind of figured. So there you go, bud.
Yeah. See, that's why we're a good team here, because Jess knows what I'm trying to say when I don't. Another, not to pick on F1 a little bit more here. Lewis Hamilton had a very strange press conference after qualifying, which I won't even get into. But if you watch it, please just look at the robot on the right and Kimi Räikkönen, how unamused and unemotional a human being could get, I think that is the pinnacle. But Lewis Hamilton blaming the F1's new engine limit for not being able to pass Sebastian Vettel towards the end of the race there. I don't really know if I believe that or not, because nobody could pass the entire race anyway, and now he's just looking for excuses why he got beat. But that might also be the fact that I am not a big fan of Lewis Hamilton's personality.
And who knows? Maybe truly that engine thing is the reason people can't pass. I mean, there are so many differentials in F1, and their rule book is so crazy because of all the technology there that, I mean, the engines could be part of the problem. Who would ever even know? Because
there's so many other problems.
There's so many. That's why I said I think they just did too much at one time.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, for those who aren't quite sure what I was talking about, the F1 engine limit for this year, instead of 4 engines being the limit before you get a 75-place grid penalty. I'm making that number up, but it's pretty much what it always looks like it is every week. Fernando Alonso had, a 190-place grid penalty at one point last year for changing something. Again, I'm probably making that number up, but I'm sure I'm not too far off. They changed it down to three engines for the year total. So, I guess it's slightly more believable in that aspect that he didn't want to push his engine. And I get it, but I don't know. I don't know if I fully believe it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and who knows, because I cannot remember to save my life right now the driver's name, but I mean, one guy had his engine go up in smoke in 15 laps. So you don't want to be in that position, but you also don't want to cost yourself races. So I don't know. Like I said, I think it's just too much at one time, and they need to slow down a little bit and kind of get back to square one and figure out what their product actually is supposed to be.
I think that's a great way of putting it. Moving on from that, I'll save the last bit of F1 gripe I have for our pitfall of the week. Tony Kanaan was interviewed yesterday or earlier today and said that he thinks that AJ Foyt Racing can contend for a victory this year. I hope he's true. I loved AJ Foyt growing up. I want nothing but the best for his team, even though they've had, you can put it lightly, a rocky few years. I don't really know if I believe Kanaan, but then again, Matthias Weiss had a great opening weekend for the most part. Kanaan didn't have an outstanding first race. I can't remember where he finished off the top of my head here, but I don't know. Do you think that? And I'll put this as our poll of the week, for everybody listening. Can AJ Foyt Racing contend for a win this year? Kanaan put that as him finishing top 8 in the standings this year.
Well, since he's my pick to win the 500.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, I do. I really think that I think they have the resources, and I think they have the right set of drivers. Do I think they'll be able to put all the pieces together at the right time in the right place? That's where they're going to need luck on their side. And they haven't had the best of luck. So I really hope that the luck fairy is going to sprinkle some dust on them or whatever. But I think they could do it. I really think they could pull off some decent finishes this year.
Yeah, like you said, I think they're going to need a little bit of luck on their side. I hope for the best, and I really do want them to contend. And I want Kanaan to groom Matthias Weiss to be a longtime IndyCar driver like Tony Kanaan was, and if there's a guy to listen to and learn from, Kanaan is definitely one of the one of the top drivers of our generation here. And a special thumbs up to the Foyt team for putting a cartoon bee on the front nose of Kanan's car for practice at the Indy road course last week after AJ's skirmish with the killer bees. Still looking for somebody with a good cartoon bee design so we can have some fun with it. But good on AJ Foyt and Foyt Racing to have some fun with that one. And sorry to all the bees who got doused in 15 gallons of gasoline. Still wish I could have kind of seen that one.
Yeah.
All right, so we have just one more off weekend before I would say the season really kicks into high gear with Phoenix, Long Beach, and what's the third one I'm missing? Barber, before we get a weekend off, and then it's the exciting month of May. And we get even more sponsorship news this week. Just mentioned Chris Windom. Jay Howard was announced in the third Schmidt-Peterson car with the same sponsor as last year. Was that Cure One? I'm trying to pull up the link real quick here. I believe that's Tony Stewart's charity, correct?
Naturally. Sure.
It's one Cure. I was close.
I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know.
And I'll give him credit. The metallic green and black livery is fantastic. I hope they can pull out some green, metallic green rims for, race weekend, similar to, Jack Harvey having the metallic pink rims, and I think Hinchcliffe has gold rims. I might be incorrect there. But please, if you're listening, do not go out and get metallic green rims for your car. And I will just leave that one at that. And then everybody's favorite, Ed Carpenter Racing Preferred Freezer Services is back again, and that shiny metallic blue, what's that, navy blue, looks fantastic on Pickett's car, and that will run at 4 or 5 races this year. So, again, IndyCar headed it in the right direction with sponsorship, which leads me to an article I saw, Jess, I don't know if you came across. It was written by Frank Santoroski, who runs a podcast generally touching on the NASCAR world, but they talk IndyCar a little bit, and how NASCAR needs to shift its focus on sponsorships similar to how IndyCar has. And you're not going to get a $10 million single season sponsor anymore for the most part. Good on you, Scott Dixon and PNC Bank, that you might need to get 5 races here, 5 races there. And how resistant some NASCAR teams seem to be to that idea. And to me, I wouldn't care if I have 1 sponsor or 17 sponsors if I'm racing. Now, from a money standpoint, if you're getting the money from 15 places or 1 place, I guess it's a little more work that you have to handle on the bookkeeping end. But in a time where sponsorship is tough, I feel any race team should be willing to take on any sponsor that wants to help out.
Yeah, I mean, just listen to our shows where we have Nick Berry on. He's asking anybody who's willing to put their name on his car. So why should the, quote unquote big guys be any different? If a company has money that they want to throw at racing, why not let them? There's always going to be room on a car for more sponsors.
Yeah, speaking of more sponsors, the Pit Lane Parlay logo, as of about 2 hours ago, will be featured on the dirt late model car of Scott Allen. You can find Scott on Twitter at Scott3SA. Scott will be doing a bunch of races in, I believe, the Ohio area and a few in Pennsylvania. I don't think his schedule's been completely confirmed yet, but Scott and I talked on the phone, and you'll see the logo on that car, and as soon as I get some pictures, I'll be sure to post them online. That literally just finished that up before Jess and I got to recording this episode with Jay Frye and finishing it off here. So with that, I don't think I have anything else. Jess, do you want to start off the pitfall wagon?
Yeah, so my pitfall this week is kind of completely off of anything I think I've ever done before. So there was an article on motorsport.com that it names two NASCAR drivers. It names Martin Truex and also Kyle Busch as, quote, raising concerns that a 13-year-old is going to become the youngest driver to ever race in the late model top tier series. My problem with this, Martin Truex actually, in my opinion, in his quotes, didn't necessarily raise concerns. He put it more in the hands of the people who know the driver's abilities, so the driver himself and his family, to make the decision, which is what I go with. So I lean towards Martin Truex's way of thinking, I guess. But Kyle Busch pretty much just came out and said, I don't understand why anybody would do this. This is crazy. Why would we put this kid in a car? He says he didn't start until he was much older, which I believe he said 15. I don't think that's much older. Maybe I'm incorrect in my thinking on that. But my personal opinion is if the kid thinks he can drive the car, he's not scared of trying to drive the car, and his family is okay with it, why not?
What does Kyle Busch have to lose other than wanting to dominate another lower series when he gets out on the track?
Yeah, and maybe that's not it at all, but why does Kyle Busch even care?
That's another reason, or another thing.
I mean, yeah, it's like, he says he was older, fine, and he brings up another full-time NASCAR driver who was older when he started racing, fine. But the majority of people in motorsports, if you talk to them, they started when they were as young as 3 years old on motorcycles. Little tiny dirt bikes. They do, by 5 or 6, they're in quarter midgets. Yep. I mean, I don't know why he is suddenly picking on this one kid, and I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember the kid's name. I was just so blown away by the fact that he was just like, no, that shouldn't be done. What? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it's only, a kid starting, in a late model at 13 gives him just that much more time to, groomed to be a better professional driver, even if he goes to the NASCAR route, which I kind of wish he would go IndyCar, but, he's only, he's only 13.
And maybe next year when he turns 14, he's going to realize he don't even like racing, and he's going to go play football or something. I mean, like...
Yeah, 13 was the age where I was, I was playing hockey, I was playing baseball, and, I still didn't know what I wanted to do for the next year, let alone the rest of my life. And sometimes I still don't. So why are we knocking this kid for wanting to pursue a passion of his that, from what it sounds like, his family is okay with? And at 13, obviously, you need parents to help you make decisions, and if his parents are fine with it, why are we knocking it? Or why do we care?
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm sure if you tuned into this entire episode, you can pretty much guess where I'm going with this one, with the one F1 piece that I did not cover, and it was the abysmal and terrible and downright awful TV package that ESPN threw together for the first F1 race of the year. I might be ranting here for a couple minutes, so stay tuned. First off, the F1 streaming service that I have done nothing but tout for the last couple weeks is not even ready yet, which I didn't know until after the race was over. But if you're going to announce something is going to be available for the season, and then the first race weekend rolls around and you say, actually, it's not ready yet, I feel like that's some poor planning on timing. Especially with how popular streaming services have been. If you're going to announce something like that, you should have it ready, or say, you know what, it's not going to be ready for the first race, guys, but it'll be ready for the third race. That way you set expectations for angry race fans before the first race of the season. Where should I go next? Terrible commercial timing. Actually, it might have been worse than the IndyCar commercial timing, and going back to green flag after some yellows, now that I have caught the TV version of the GP of St. Pete. Terrible timing there. The announcers kind of sounded like they had a few drinks and were just kind of mumbling through the entire presentation. I believe the announcers are from Sky Sports. It's actually ESPN just pretty much just using what Sky Sports does. Not that the announcers were terrible, but I feel like I had a hard time understanding what they were saying. And as a more casual F1 fan, I would like to understand what they're saying so I kind of know what the heck is going on. Have I covered it all? Jess, do you have any thoughts on this one while I try to regroup? And
I have to agree with you for sure on this streaming. That's like, you can't come out and say, oh my God, we're going to have this great package, and then bam, you don't have anything. So I definitely see that. The one thing that I think bothered me with the ESPN using Sky TV's coverage, and I don't want anybody to take me wrong on this. I love Sky TV. I love their broadcasts. I think they do an excellent job. But the fact that ESPN brought it over and then didn't really do any kind of editing to make it work for them was a little bit ridiculous. I know that ESPN is having their troubles or whatnot, but surely you still have an editor somewhere that's still on your payroll. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, so now that I have regrouped and figured out exactly what I wanted to say, continuing on the terribleness, ESPN had to come out and apologize for the technical issues they had. There was no pre-race show because on-the-track pre-race was not working in the United States. We saw a live shot of Turn 9 on the racetrack. There was nobody talking, and it even went to commercial twice. And after 10 minutes, ESPN switched to one of those ESPN documentary specials that they run. So you got no pre-race, and I believe there was no post-race as well. I didn't even bother to tune in to check. But all sorts of messes, split screen issues, announcer issues, obviously these technical issues, audio issues. At one point, I do remember the Sky Sports guys were talking about some sort of issues on pit lane that one of the teams were having, and in the middle of the explanation, ESPN decided this is a great time to go to commercial. The only time I could understand what the guys were saying. Anyway, I'm not going to continue ranting for the next 20 minutes. We're already bumping up, close to an hour here, so I'll leave it at that. I believe that when the streaming service comes, it'll, most of those problems will be alleviated, and I know I will be paying just to be able to painlessly watch a race and not have to sit through any more ESPN technical issues. So shame on you, ESPN, for a terrible debut weekend. I feel like, especially the first race of the year, you want to, have everything working in smooth order to, really, showcase what you're about. And I believe the .16 TV rating says enough right there. And with that, again, make sure to Tune in Fridays 3:15, 4:15 on wildfireradiosports.com to listen to the show live. Obviously, it's still available on all the podcast apps. Next week, we will have David Bird join us. Jess will not be here next week. Cue some sort of sad crying meme. But Encyclopedia Matt Hickey will be back in the saddle helping me out just for next week, and then Jess will be back the following week. And pretty soon on wildfireradiosports.com, we will have the Cheese Party with Team Pit Lane shirts available, in addition to the yet-to-be-designed #InJFrye We Trust shirts available. And then you can also, through the merchandise store, get it made on a sweatshirt or a long-sleeve t-shirt or a coffee mug. What better than an InJFrye We Trust coffee mug? I think I'll be ordering a few for myself. And I think even a phone case, depending on what kind of phone you have. So, thank you to Wildfire Radio for helping us get that set up. And if we don't have anything else, Jess, I will let you sign it off.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight.